What if the secret to your peace isn't doing more, but letting go of what was never yours to control? What if your greatest power isn't how loud you speak, but how calmly you respond when the world tests you? And what if the difference between failure and fulfillment isn't luck, talent, or timing, but how deeply you know your own principles? In a world that constantly pulls you in 100 directions, telling you to hustle harder, react faster, prove yourself louder, there is a quieter path. A path built not on noise, but on depth, not on chaos, but on clarity. That path is Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that has quietly guided warriors, emperors, thinkers, and survivors for centuries. But Stoicism isn't about wearing a stone face or shutting out emotion. It's about mastering your inner world so the outer world no longer has power over you. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just survive storms, but walks through them with strength, purpose, and peace. In this journey, we'll uncover 13 timeless Stoic principles, not as abstract theories, but as powerful practices you can apply right now. In real life, these are not rules, they are tools, crafted by wisdom, sharpened by adversity, and made for those ready to rise. Let's begin. 1. Focus only on what you can control. In a world constantly pulling us in every direction, with headlines screaming chaos, people offering opinions we never asked for, and unexpected setbacks shaking our plans, there's one simple Stoic principle that can completely change your life. Focus only on what you can control. It sounds easy, almost too easy, but when applied with intention, this idea becomes your anchor in the storm, your compass when life feels overwhelming. Let's be honest. How much of your energy is spent worrying about what people think of you? Or obsessing over things that haven't even happened yet? Or replaying past conversations, wondering if you said the wrong thing? If you've ever felt drained, paralyzed, or directionless, chances are you're trying to control too many things that simply aren't yours to control. That's where Stoicism steps in, not as a cold or emotionless doctrine, but as a deeply empowering mindset that frees you to invest your energy wisely. Epictetus said it best: some things are up to us and some are not. When you truly understand this distinction, it shifts how you approach every moment of your day. Imagine waking up and already feeling anxious because of what might happen in a meeting later, or whether someone texts you back, or how you'll be judged online. None of those things are within your control. But your attitude, your preparation, your character, those are. The Stoics teach that our power lies not in trying to manipulate the world around us, but in mastering our inner world. That means choosing your response, not just reacting. It means living by intention, not impulse. And it means letting go of the illusion that control equals peace, because the truth is, peace only comes when we stop trying to control what's uncontrollable. Let's take a real-world example. Say you're working hard on a project that really matters to you. You're putting in the effort, staying up late, sacrificing comfort, but when the results come in, your boss isn't impressed. Or maybe external circumstances ruin the outcome. Most people would spiral, frustration, self-doubt, maybe even anger. But a Stoic mindset would say, did you control the outcome? No. Did you control your effort? Your preparation? Your integrity throughout the process? Yes. That's where your pride should lie. When you measure success by effort instead of results, you take back your power. You build self-respect, not based on applause or approval, but on who you are and how you show up. Now, this isn't about giving up or being passive. It's not about saying, whatever happens, happens, with a shrug. It's about radical focus, precision. It's about learning to pour yourself into the things that matter, the things you can actually shape, and not wasting your spirit on everything else. Think about how freeing that is. You no longer have to control whether someone misunderstands you. You just have to communicate clearly and kindly. You no longer have to stress over whether an opportunity pans out. You just have to show up prepared, focused, and resilient. You stop living life like a game of roulette and start living like an artist, shaping your inner world with care and purpose. And here's the best part. When you narrow your focus to what you can control, you become more effective in every area of life. Your productivity improves because you stop chasing distractions. Your relationships improve because you stop trying to control other people and start showing up authentically. Your peace deepens because you're no longer at war with things you can't change. It's not magic. It's just mastery, one thought, one decision, one response at a time. Take criticism, for instance. We all get it. Sometimes it's fair. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's just noise. A Stoic response doesn't fight the person or obsess over the words. It pauses. It listens. It filters. You ask, is there truth here that I can use? If yes, apply it. If no, let it go. Either way, you remain centered. You don't hand your emotional well-being to someone else's opinion. That's what control looks like, not dominating others, but mastering yourself. Or let's say you're stuck in traffic, running late. You can't change the red light. You can't move the cars ahead. You can't even speed things up by honking. All that's in your control is your mindset. Will you clench your jaw, scream at the steering wheel, and ruin the rest of your day? Or will you take a breath, accept the reality, maybe turn on music or a podcast and make peace with the moment? That choice, that moment right there, is where Stoicism lives. You can also practice this principle with a simple but powerful exercise. Next time you're overwhelmed, make a control audit. Take a sheet of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On one side, write what's in your control. On the other, what isn't. You'll be surprised how much of your stress lives on the wrong side of the page. Just seeing it on paper helps you redirect your energy where it actually matters. Let's talk about perfectionism too. It's often disguised as control. We want things just right, flawless, ideal. We think that by controlling every little detail, we can guarantee success or admiration. But perfectionism is just another way we set ourselves up to suffer. Stoicism says, aim for excellence, not perfection. Give your best, then let go. Trust that the universe, or life, or fate, whatever name you give it, will handle the rest. When you stop trying to control everything, you start enjoying life again. You allow room for creativity, curiosity, and grace. Even in uncertain times, perhaps especially then, this principle shines brightest. Whether it's a global crisis or a personal upheaval, there's always a circle of control you can retreat to. Your habits, your thoughts, your choices. When you ground yourself there, fear loses its grip. You start to say, I don't know what will happen, but I know how I will show up. And that changes everything. So, what happens when you actually live this principle? You become calmer. Because you're no longer expending energy on battles you can't win. You become more productive. Because your effort is focused, not scattered. You become more resilient. Because setbacks no longer break you, they refine you. You build peace not by fixing the world, but by mastering how you walk through it. Epictetus didn't say control everything. He said, control what's yours. Marcus Aurelius didn't say the world will bend to your will. He said, bend your will toward wisdom. And Seneca didn't say life will go your way. He said, prepare your mind to go wisely through life, no matter the way it turns. If you carry this principle into your everyday choices, how you react to delays, how you engage with difficult people, how you face uncertainty, you'll begin to feel a shift. Not because life got easier, but because your mindset got stronger. The more you focus on what's in your power, the more powerful you feel, and the less you waste your spirit on things outside your hands, the more energy you have to build the life you actually want. Life is unpredictable. People are unpredictable. Results are uncertain. But your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, those are your domain. And when you live there, fully and fearlessly, you don't just survive the chaos. You rise above it. 2. Do your best in everything, but let go of the outcome. There's something deeply liberating, yet terrifying, about giving your all and releasing your grip on the result. Most of us were taught from a young age that our worth is measured by outcomes. That success is only real if it's visible. That if we don't hit the target, we've somehow failed. But what if that belief is the very thing holding us back? What if clinging too tightly to the result is exactly what's making us anxious, burned out, and disconnected from the joy of the process? The Stoics, in their quiet, steady wisdom, offered a different way. Do your absolute best. Leave nothing on the table. And then, let it go. Let go of the outcome. Because it's not where your control lies. Your power is in the effort, in the preparation, in how you show up, day after day, whether the world applauds or stays silent. This principle may sound simple, but applying it takes courage. Think about a moment when you poured yourself into something, a project, a relationship, a performance, and the outcome didn't match your hopes. Maybe you didn't get the recognition, or the reward, or even a thank you. Maybe the result felt like a slap in the face after all the work you put in. It stings, doesn't it? That feeling of rejection or disappointment can eat away at your confidence if you're not careful. But here's where Stoicism steps in and speaks truth into the noise. The outcome doesn't define your worth. The outcome is never guaranteed. What defines you is your effort, your integrity, your process. Imagine training for months to run a marathon. You wake up early, push through pain, stick to your diet, stay consistent, and then race day comes, and suddenly it rains. Your ankle gives out, or you just don't perform your best. Most people would spiral, but a Stoic asks, did you control the weather? Did you control how your body responded? No. What did you control? Your discipline, your focus, your mindset. That's where your identity lives, not in medals, not in praise, but in the quiet hours when no one was watching and you kept going anyway. That's what it means to do your best and let go. You see, when we obsess over results, we become fragile. We attach our emotions to variables we can't control, other people's opinions, timing, luck, external circumstances. We start riding a roller coaster where our happiness rises and falls with every tiny outcome. But when we shift our focus to the process, to showing up fully, giving our all, and releasing the rest, we build something far more powerful: resilience. We become rooted, unshakable, less reactive, more grounded. We stop living for validation and start living for values. It's not about apathy. It's not about being indifferent to results or pretending they don't matter. It's about understanding that results are a reflection, not a definition. They may reflect the conditions of the world, the opinions of others, or even a bit of luck, but they don't define your identity, your dignity, or your destiny. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just poetic, it's a manual for freedom. It means, show up, work hard, but do it for the sake of excellence itself, not for the applause that may or may not come. Take creative work, for example. A writer spends years crafting a book, heart wide open on every page. They publish it, and the reviews are mixed. Some people don't get it. Sales are slow. If that writer measures their success only by the outcome, they may quit, thinking the effort was worthless. But if they follow the Stoic path, they remember, the victory was in the writing, in the courage to create, in the process of refining their voice. They've already won. The outcome is just noise. This mindset applies in every area of life. In relationships, you love deeply, communicate honestly, remain loyal, and sometimes people still walk away. That doesn't make your love any less real or your effort any less noble. In your career, you stay late, deliver your best work, mentor others, and still get passed over for the promotion. That doesn't erase your value. What matters is the character you bring to every action. That's what no one can take from you. Let's also talk about fear of failure. Most people aren't afraid of the process. They're afraid of how they'll feel if the result doesn't meet expectations. But once you detach your self-worth from outcomes, failure loses its grip. You stop seeing failure as a final verdict and start seeing it as feedback. You can look at a bad result and ask, what did I learn? What can I improve? What do I carry forward? In that moment, you become unstoppable, not because everything goes your way, but because you keep growing regardless of how it goes. There's a practical beauty in setting process-based goals instead of outcome-based ones. Instead of saying, I want 100,000 followers, say, I'll post valuable content every day. Instead of, I want to be promoted by next year, say, I'll deliver consistent excellence and seek growth in my role. That's where your focus should be, on what you do, not on what you get. Ironically, this mindset often leads to better results. Because you're no longer distracted by fear or fantasy. You're locked into action, you're present, and that's where real momentum lives. Even in something as simple as a conversation. Let's say you're trying to resolve a conflict, you can prepare well. Speak calmly, be honest, but the other person may not respond how you hope. They might get defensive, or shut down. In that moment, your job isn't to fix their reaction. Your job is to uphold your standard of communication. You've done your best. That's enough. Letting go means walking away with your head high, knowing you stood in your truth. And here's something else. Letting go of the outcome doesn't mean you lower your standards. In fact, it allows you to raise them. Because you're no longer trying to manipulate life into giving you what you want. You're playing a deeper game. You're choosing effort over ego, mastery over momentary praise, discipline over drama, and as a result, you become more focused, more authentic, more powerful. This is how you reclaim your peace. When you anchor your identity in effort, you stop being controlled by wins and losses. You stop performing for applause. You start living from intention. And that creates a deep, quiet confidence that doesn't need validation. You become someone who keeps showing up, not because the world rewards you, but because you know who you are and what matters to you. The Stoics remind us that the only thing truly in our hands is the way we act in the face of life. We can't guarantee a smooth path. We can't demand success from a world that owes us nothing. But we can choose how we show up. We can choose effort, excellence, integrity, every single day. And when we do that, we've already won. So let this principle live in your actions. Study hard not for the grade, but for the growth. Speak your truth not to be liked, but to be honest. Train your body not just for the six-pack, but for discipline and energy. Love with your whole heart, not because it will be returned, but because it reflects who you are. Do your best, relentlessly, passionately, then exhale. Release the need to control what happens next. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to give your best and live with grace. And in that space, between full effort and full surrender, you'll find a kind of freedom the world can never take from you. Do your best, let go of the outcome, and trust that you've already succeeded. 3. Practice self-discipline every day. There's a silent force that separates those who wish from those who achieve. It's not talent, it's not motivation, it's not luck, it's self-discipline. The daily decision to show up, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, even when you'd rather quit. It's waking up and doing what needs to be done without waiting for inspiration to strike. Self-discipline isn't loud or flashy. It doesn't make headlines, but it is the foundation of every great life. Every long-term transformation, every quiet personal victory. The Stoics knew this truth long before it became a buzzword. They believed that true freedom doesn't come from indulging every impulse, but from mastering them. Because when your actions are governed by purpose, not by mood, you become unstoppable. Most people spend their lives chasing motivation. They wait until they feel like working out, writing that email, building that business. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Self-discipline, on the other hand, is stable. It's a choice you make, again and again, regardless of how you feel. That's the secret high performers understand. They don't always want to do the work, but they do it anyway. They've trained themselves to honor commitment over comfort. And that's where greatness begins. Think of a musician who practices every morning before the world wakes up. Not because they feel like it, but because they made a promise to themselves. Think of the entrepreneur who keeps building even when no one is watching, even when results are slow. Think of the parent who shows up for their kids, day in and day out, despite exhaustion or overwhelm. These are not acts of convenience. These are acts of discipline, of choosing the higher path over the easy one. That's where the soul gets stronger. That's where resilience is born. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." What he meant is simple. If your moods control your actions, you're a slave to emotion. If your cravings dictate your choices, you're a prisoner to impulse. But if you can choose action, even when it's hard, you become free. Free to build the life you want. Free to rise above excuses. Free to grow, evolve, and create something lasting. And this kind of freedom? It doesn't come overnight. It's forged in the fire of daily discipline. Now, here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Discipline is rarely glamorous. It's early alarms. It's skipping shortcuts. It's saying no when everyone else says yes. It's repeating the basics until mastery becomes muscle memory. It's quiet progress, invisible progress, the kind that doesn't earn likes or praise, but rewires your brain, strengthens your will, and builds unshakable confidence. Because every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you prove that you're someone who can be trusted. That's a kind of power no one can take from you. And it doesn't have to start big. In fact, it shouldn't. Discipline grows like a muscle, small reps, daily effort, consistent tension. Wake up 10 minutes earlier. Turn off your phone an hour before bed. Say no to the dessert. Show up to the gym even when you're tired. Write 200 words a day. Whatever your goal is, build a habit around it. Remove the drama. Create structure. And when the voice in your head whispers, "Let's skip today," answer back with action. Not argument, action. Because discipline isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. There will be days when it's hard. When your energy is low. When nothing seems to be working. That's when discipline matters most. When motivation disappears. Discipline carries you forward. When emotion clouds your mind. Discipline brings clarity. When failure knocks you down. Discipline helps you stand back up, not with a burst of inspiration, but with the quiet strength of someone who refuses to stay down. Let's talk about temptation, too. In today's world, everything is built to distract you. Endless scrolling, constant notifications, easy entertainment. Discipline is the skill that helps you rise above the noise. It teaches you to choose what you want most over what you want now. It's not about being rigid. It's about being intentional. You're not avoiding pleasure. You're prioritizing purpose. You're saying, "I have a vision for my life, and I'm not trading it for short-term comfort." The Stoics didn't believe in suppressing desire. They believed in mastering it. They didn't demand perfection, they pursued progress. And they understood that every day is a chance to train the mind, strengthen the will, and move closer to virtue. Discipline, for them, wasn't punishment, it was power, a way to become less reactive, more thoughtful, and ultimately more free. Seneca wrote, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." That's the goal, not to control the world, but to control your response to it. To lead yourself before you try to lead others. One of the best ways to build discipline is to create routines. Routines eliminate decision fatigue. They make the hard things automatic. You don't wake up and ask, "Should I work out today?" You just do it. You don't negotiate with your mind. You follow the system. The structure becomes your safety net. It removes friction. It protects your energy for what really matters. And when life gets chaotic, as it always does, your routine becomes the anchor that keeps you grounded. And yes, you will slip. You'll miss a workout, eat something you regret, skip a task. That's not failure. That's feedback. Discipline isn't destroyed by a single misstep. It's built by what you do next. Do you spiral? Or do you reset? Do you shame yourself? Or do you recommit? The Stoics would say, don't waste time in regret. Learn, adjust, move forward, keep the promise again and again And again, another trap to avoid is perfectionism. So many people sabotage their discipline because they expect to be perfect. The first time they fall, they quit. But discipline isn't about never falling, it's about always rising. Think of it like training a dog. You don't expect it to obey instantly. You repeat, you reward, you redirect. That's how you train your mind, with patience, with repetition, with forgiveness, and most of all, with consistency. There's also something incredibly fulfilling about discipline. Because when you choose discipline, you're choosing yourself. You're saying, my goals matter, my future matters, my word matters. You start to see yourself differently, not as someone who dreams, but as someone who does. And that changes how you walk, how you talk, how you treat yourself. You build confidence not from compliments, but from follow through. You don't need anyone else to believe in you, because you believe in yourself. Discipline affects every area of your life. Your health, your career, your relationships, your peace of mind. It helps you set boundaries. Say no when you need to. Protect your time. Stay focused on what matters. It's the invisible thread that holds your life together when everything else is pulling it apart. Without discipline, life becomes chaotic. With discipline, life becomes intentional. Predictable? No, but purposeful. And that makes all the difference. Look at any extraordinary human being, a world-class athlete, an admired leader, a wise teacher. They all have one thing in common: relentless discipline. It's not that they always loved the process. It's that they refused to be ruled by their excuses. They chose growth over comfort, again and again, until it became second nature. You can do the same. No matter where you're starting from, you can build this muscle. You can train your will. You can shape your mind. And it starts right now. With one small choice, one action, one promise kept. You don't need motivation to begin. You need a reason. You need vision. You need to remember who you want to become and why it matters. And then you need to act like that person, even on the days you don't feel like it. Especially on those days, because that's when discipline becomes who you are, not just what you do. Self-discipline isn't a punishment. It's a declaration of self-respect. It's the daily decision to rise, to focus, to move, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the mood, regardless of the fear. And every time you do it, you strengthen the most important muscle you have, the one that says, I will follow through. Practice self-discipline every day, not because it's easy, but because it makes everything else possible. 4. Accept and learn from failure. Failure. It's the word most people fear, avoid, and run from. Yet ironically, it's also the one thing that forges the strongest character, teaches the deepest lessons, and reveals the truth about who we are. The Stoics didn't see failure as the end of the story. They saw it as a turning point, a sharpening stone, a doorway, a mirror. They knew what modern minds so often forget. Failure isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to study, to face, to absorb, because failure, when embraced with courage and curiosity, becomes the catalyst for your greatest growth. The obstacle becomes the way. Think about the most meaningful lessons in your life, the ones that shifted your mindset, rewrote your direction, redefined your strength. Chances are, they didn't come wrapped in success or applause. They came after something broke, after something didn't go as planned, after a plan fell apart or a dream collapsed. It's in those moments, when the ego is bruised and the future uncertain, that we are presented with the greatest opportunity, the chance to learn. The Stoics didn't believe in running from pain or hiding from mistakes. They believed in turning toward them, wide-eyed and grounded, because pain is a teacher. Failure is a compass, and what hurts the most often teaches the most. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just a poetic line. That's philosophy forged in reality. When something blocks your path, that block doesn't mean it's over. It means you're being redirected, refined, tested, not to crush you, but to carve something deeper out of you. Character, clarity, perspective, that's the hidden gift inside failure. But only if you choose to see it that way. Let's be clear. Accepting failure doesn't mean enjoying it. It stings. It disappoints. It breaks expectations. But avoiding it, denying it, or blaming others only adds layers of suffering. The Stoic path says, own it. Examine it. Strip away the emotion and look for the truth. Where did things go off track? What did I misjudge? What can I do better next time? Failure isn't personal. It's data. It's feedback from reality. When we learn to detach our identity from the outcome, failure becomes something we can actually use. Take the example of someone who starts a business. They pour in time, energy, money, and after a year, it flops. Most would see that as a personal defeat. But a Stoic would say, this was a test of commitment, strategy, and adaptability. What did the market teach you? What assumptions need adjusting? What skill gaps were revealed? The failure becomes a classroom, not a coffin, and the experience becomes priceless, not because it succeeded, but because it shaped the person who endured it. We're conditioned to think that success is the goal. But the Stoics would argue that growth is the real prize. And growth rarely comes from smooth roads. It comes from falling, reassessing, rebuilding, and trying again, this time with more wisdom, more humility, and more grit. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In other words, failure isn't the final word. Your response is. Fear of failure is one of the most toxic barriers to greatness. It paralyzes potential. It keeps people from even trying. But here's the irony. By avoiding failure, we guarantee stagnation. We stay small. We protect comfort at the cost of expansion. The Stoics flip the script. You should expect failure. Not in a pessimistic way, but in a prepared one. Because life is unpredictable, you can do everything right and still fall short. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. And the more comfortable you become with falling, the stronger you become at rising. That's the real power of Stoicism. It trains you not just to endure the storm, but to walk through it with wisdom and inner strength. When failure strikes, a Stoic doesn't panic. They observe, they reflect, they adapt, and then they try again, with more accuracy, more resilience, more purpose. Let's take relationships. You open your heart, give your best, and it still ends. It hurts. But failure in love doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means there's something to learn about yourself. Your needs, your patterns. The lesson may be painful, but it's still a lesson. Or let's say you miss out on a job you wanted. The rejection feels like a slap, but if you use it as fuel to sharpen your skills, improve your communication, or pivot toward a better fit, then that failure just opened the door to your next level. Reframing is a powerful tool here. Instead of saying, I failed, say, I learned. Instead of, I lost, say, I gained clarity. That shift in language becomes a shift in identity. You're not a failure, you're a learner, a builder, a student of experience. That's what Stoic resilience looks like, not blind optimism, but clear-eyed courage, the willingness to step back into the ring after a hard fall. Not because you're guaranteed to win, but because you're committed to growing. We also have to talk about perfectionism, the false idea that you're only worthy if everything goes flawlessly. That mindset is poison. It creates fear, paralysis, shame. The Stoics say, drop the illusion. Perfection is not the goal. Progress is, effort is, wisdom is, and all of those things come through trial, through error, through stumbling forward. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert has a history of mistakes. The difference is, they didn't stop. They didn't let failure have the final word. Even in the face of public failure, embarrassment, criticism, humiliation, a Stoic holds steady. Because external opinions don't determine your value. They don't know your effort. They don't understand your intent. Marcus Aurelius warned against giving too much weight to what others think. Most people are too distracted by their own lives to judge you deeply anyway. And those who do judge, their opinions are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is how you carry yourself through the highs and lows. With integrity and courage, learning from failure also requires humility. You must be willing to admit when something didn't work, to sit with the discomfort of error, to resist the urge to deflect or justify. That's hard, but it's necessary. Humility opens the door to growth. Pride slams it shut. The Stoics saw humility not as weakness, but as strength, the kind of strength that bends but doesn't break. That learns, that improves, that keeps moving. And yes, you will fail again, even after you've learned the lesson, even after you've grown, because life doesn't offer immunity from difficulty. But what it does offer, through each failure, is refinement. Each setback strips away illusion, ego, fear. It sharpens you. It builds a deeper foundation for real strength, not the strength that resists falling, but the strength that keeps rising. Ultimately, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. It's woven into the journey. And those who walk the path with open eyes and an open mind, who take the hit but still take the next step, those are the ones who become unstoppable. Not because they avoided failure, but because they mastered it, used it, transformed it. So if you've failed recently, or if you're carrying the weight of an old mistake that still haunts you, pause. Breathe, reflect, ask yourself, what did this experience come to teach me? What can I carry forward from this moment that will make me wiser, kinder, more capable? That's the Stoic path, not to erase the pain, but to make the pain meaningful, to turn wounds into wisdom, to use every fall as a way to rise higher, stronger, clearer. Accept failure, learn from it, let it refine you, not define you. What stands in the way becomes the way. 5. Focus on the present moment. The past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, and yet most of us spend our lives trapped between the two, replaying what we cannot change and worrying about what we cannot predict. It's no wonder our minds are cluttered, our hearts anxious, our days fogged by distractions that rob us of peace. But the Stoics offered a path out of that chaos. A simple and powerful invitation. Come back to the present moment. Because the present is the only place where life actually happens. It's where your decisions matter, where your actions take root, where your experience is alive and breathing. When you lose yourself in the past or obsess over what's ahead, you miss the only moment that's ever truly yours, right now. Marcus Aurelius, one of the wisest minds in Stoic philosophy and a Roman emperor who carried the weight of an empire, once wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Imagine that, a man managing wars, politics, and personal struggles, reminding himself to return, not to plans, not to memories, but to this breath, this decision, this moment, because he knew that the present isn't just a pause between what was and what will be. It's the battlefield where your character is formed and your peace is forged. Think about how often your mind drifts. You're in a conversation, but you're not really listening. You're walking down the street, but you're in your head, solving tomorrow's problems or reliving yesterday's wounds. You're scrolling endlessly, numbing out instead of tuning in. And yet the only time you can truly influence, truly enjoy, truly be, is now. The Stoics were not just philosophers. They were warriors of presence. They believed that to live fully, you must first arrive, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When you're present, you gain access to the power of clarity. You notice more, you feel deeper, you respond, rather than react, and that is where transformation begins. Let's be honest, being present in today's world is hard. Everything is designed to pull you away from the now. Notifications, headlines, endless to-do lists. But presence is not about escaping the world. It's about anchoring yourself within it. It's about stepping into the current moment with your full attention and saying, "This is where I choose to be." That's not just mindfulness. That's power. You might be wondering, why is this so important? Why does the present matter so much? Because it's the only place you can act. You can't go back and redo yesterday, no matter how much you regret. You can't fast forward to the future, no matter how much you plan. But you can choose how you show up today. You can decide how to treat the person in front of you, how to breathe through stress, how to focus your energy. And the more present you become, the more grounded your life feels, the more clear your decisions become, the more intentional your path unfolds. Take stress, for example. Most of it doesn't come from the moment you're in, it comes from anticipation or regret. You're worried about how something might go, or you're beating yourself up over how something already went. But in the actual now, things are usually manageable. The Stoics knew that. They trained their minds to focus on what is, not what was or might be. Because when you're locked into the present, fear fades, pressure drops, the noise clears, and you begin to operate from strength, not panic. Even in hardship, this principle holds. When life gets chaotic, when grief, change, or uncertainty hit, you can always return to the breath, to the body, to the single next step in front of you. That's what presence gives you. A compass in the storm. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be where your feet are and take the next right action. One moment at a time. Let's get practical. How do you train this mindset? One of the simplest methods is to connect with your senses. Ask yourself, what do I see right now? What do I hear? What am I touching, smelling, noticing? It seems small, but it's profound. Your senses pull you out of the mind and into the moment. They bring you into reality. Another tool is the breath. Slow, intentional breaths ground you. They lower stress hormones. They clear the fog. Just 3 deep breaths can reset your state and bring you home to yourself. And here's the beauty. The more you practice presence, the more natural it becomes. Your nervous system adapts. Your mind stops chasing every thought. Your heart becomes more open. And you begin to notice moments that used to pass you by, a smile, a breeze, a quiet victory. Life doesn't just become more peaceful. It becomes richer, fuller, more meaningful. Now let's address the myth of multitasking. We live in a culture that worships doing everything at once, eating while emailing, texting while walking, thinking of 5 things while doing one. But the truth is, multitasking is a lie. It divides your attention, weakens your focus, and exhausts your brain. The Stoics would say, do one thing with your full mind, then move to the next. Because the quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of your attention. And scattered attention leads to scattered results. Even in your relationships, presence changes everything. When you're truly present with someone, they feel it. They feel seen, heard, valued. You create space for connection, for trust, for growth. Contrast that with distracted presence, half listening, half engaged. People notice the difference. And more importantly, you feel the difference. Presence doesn't just improve others' experience of you. It deepens your own experience of them. There's also an emotional freedom that comes from living in the present. Because when you're anchored here, you're not held hostage by yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's fears. You're free to forgive, free to create, free to enjoy. You begin to see that the weight you were carrying wasn't from what was happening. It was from where your mind was living. And when you bring your mind back to now, you drop the burden, you reclaim your power. Even with goals and ambition, things the Stoics supported, you must remember this. The path is built in the present. Not someday, not next year, now. You don't write a book all at once. You write a page. You don't build a healthy body overnight. You show up to one workout, one meal, one decision. The compound effect of small, present actions creates extraordinary results. But only if you're consistent. Only if you're here. And when challenges come, and they will, presence becomes your armor. It keeps you calm. It keeps you strategic. Instead of spinning into panic, you ask, what can I do right now? That's the Stoic mindset. Not ignoring the problem, not dramatizing it, but meeting it directly, in the present, where your action has real impact. This is how you build a centered life, not by controlling every variable, but by mastering your attention, by choosing to live fully engaged in the only time you ever really own. Everything else is illusion. The past is memory. The future is fantasy. But this moment is real. And in this moment, you are capable. You are strong. You are free to act. If your life feels overwhelming, scattered, or disconnected, come back to the present. Not someday. Not later, now. Put down the phone. Close the browser. Breathe. Look around. This is your life. Right here. Right now. Don't miss it. Focus on the present moment, not because it's easy, but because it's the only place anything real ever happens. 6. Focus on your actions, not the opinions of others. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are not here to meet every expectation, chase every compliment, or soften your truth just to avoid being judged. You are here to live with purpose, to move with integrity, and to act according to the values you believe in, not the opinions others form about you. That's one of the boldest teachings of Stoicism. Your peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from living rightly. When you chase validation, you give away your power. When you prioritize your own principles over popularity, you become unshakable. Let's be honest, every single day, you're bombarded with silent pressure to conform. Whether it's from your social media feed, your workplace, your family, or even strangers passing glances, there's a subtle pull to shift, to shrink, to perform. But the Stoics taught us that freedom isn't found in winning the crowd. Freedom is found in detaching your self-worth from how the world responds. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That contradiction is what traps us. We forget that the crowd doesn't live your life, you do. Every time you act with fear of judgment, you sacrifice a piece of your authenticity. Every time you filter yourself to avoid criticism, you compromise your power. And every time you hesitate because of what someone might think, you miss the chance to lead with courage. But when you start focusing on your own actions, not the whispers, not the glances, not the assumptions, you unlock a kind of clarity that's rare in today's noisy world. You begin to move from the inside out, not the outside in. Imagine you're pursuing something meaningful, a passion, a goal, a dream. The moment you begin, someone will have something to say. They'll doubt you, question your choices, maybe even mock you. That's life. And that's why the Stoics taught us to separate the inner compass from outer noise. What matters is not whether they clap. What matters is whether you acted with courage, whether your decision aligned with your values, whether you can look yourself in the mirror and say, "That was true to who I am." People will misunderstand you. Some will label you, criticize you, talk behind your back. And it has nothing to do with you. It's their projection, their insecurity, their need to control what they don't understand. But once you stop trying to control how others perceive you, something powerful happens. You become free. You stop adjusting your pace to match their expectations. You stop trying to prove, to explain, to be palatable. You just live, fully, boldly, authentically. And here's the truth. Trying to please everyone is a game you will always lose. Because no matter how carefully you walk, someone will still say you stepped wrong. No matter how gently you speak, someone will still twist your words. That's why Stoic wisdom focuses on one thing, your action. That is your domain. That is where your energy should lie. Ask yourself, did I act with integrity? Did I speak with honesty? Did I move in alignment with my values? If the answer is yes, you're already winning. There's a deep kind of confidence that's born not from being praised, but from living with self-respect. It's a quiet strength, a calm certainty that doesn't seek validation. It doesn't ask for applause. It just is. That's the power of focusing on action over approval. Because when your focus shifts inward, toward your choices, your standards, your effort, you become immune to the roller coaster of public opinion. Compliments don't inflate you. Criticism doesn't break you. You remain steady, grounded in who you are. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine you're leaving a high-paying job to follow a passion that truly lights you up, something people don't understand. The moment you make the announcement, the opinions start flooding in. You're being reckless. That's not realistic. What if you fail? And that's when you face a choice. Live according to their doubts. or alive according to your calling. The Stoic path says this: choose action, not for their acceptance, but for your own evolution. You are not responsible for their approval. You are responsible for your integrity. And the beautiful thing is, once you release the weight of judgment, your creativity expands, your courage rises. You stop second-guessing every step. You stop filtering your truth. You start taking bolder action, not because it's safe, but because it's aligned. That's how leaders are born, not by echoing the crowd, but by walking their own path with conviction, even if that path is misunderstood. Epictetus reminds us, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's the price of growth, being misunderstood. But would you rather fit in with the crowd or evolve into the person you were meant to become? That's the Stoic choice, not to chase applause, but to pursue virtue, not to adapt for comfort, but to act from courage. This mindset also reshapes how you handle criticism. Instead of crumbling or reacting, you evaluate. You ask, is there truth here? Can I learn from this? If yes, grow. If no, release. But either way, don't let it define you. Because your worth isn't up for vote. It's grounded in your values, not in the shifting winds of others' opinions. And when you face praise, accept it with humility, but don't cling to it. Don't let it become the reason you act. Because the moment your motivation depends on being praised, you become vulnerable to being manipulated. True freedom is doing the right thing, even if no one notices, even if no one cheers, even if they boo, because in the end, you answer to your own soul, not to the crowd. There's also deep peace in this way of living. When you stop trying to impress, you start to enjoy. When you stop editing yourself to be accepted, you begin to feel whole. You reconnect with your truth. You move with intention. You live with fewer regrets. Because you're no longer outsourcing your identity to someone else's opinion. This doesn't mean becoming rude or rebellious. It means becoming rooted, grounded, clear. It means you respect others, but you don't bend your soul to fit their mold. You listen, but you don't let outside voices drown out your inner one. That's Stoic maturity, not coldness, but clarity, not arrogance, but alignment. And here's the best part: when you focus on action, not opinions, the right people find you. The people who respect your authenticity. The ones who are drawn not to your performance, but to your presence. You build relationships based on truth, not pretense, and that creates deeper trust, stronger connections, and a life that feels real. At the end of it all, the Stoics ask just one thing: are you living according to your principles? Are you acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control? If yes, walk tall. Whether they praise or criticize, admire or mock, your compass is set, and that is what separates the ordinary from the excellent, not public perception, but personal integrity. Focus on your actions, not the opinions of others. That's where your power lives, and that's where your peace begins. 7. Embrace change. It's the only constant. Change doesn't knock. It doesn't wait for permission. It enters unannounced, breaking routines, shifting the ground beneath your feet, dismantling the comfort you clung to. It can come as a job loss, a breakup, an unexpected opportunity, or a world that suddenly looks nothing like it did yesterday. But one truth remains, echoing through every season of life: change is not the enemy. Change is life itself. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't just tolerate change, they embraced it, studied it, and learned to flow with it rather than fight it. Because in their eyes, resisting what is inevitable is a guaranteed path to suffering, while acceptance opens the door to power, peace, and growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change. Trees grow and shed, rivers shift their course, the sun rises and sets without fail. Even your body is not the same today as it was a year ago. Every breath you take is part of a cycle of renewal, and every moment you experience is a point of transition." Yet, despite this truth, most people cling tightly to what's familiar, even when it no longer serves them. They fear change, avoid it, and see it as a threat to security. But what if, instead of resisting, you welcomed change as a mentor, a sculptor, a powerful force that refines you into who you're meant to be? To embrace change is to accept that control is an illusion. You don't get to dictate every outcome, every detail, every twist in the road, but you do get to choose how you respond. That is where Stoic wisdom shines. It reminds us that our internal world, our perspective, attitude, and decisions are always within reach, even when the external world spins unpredictably. Change might shake your plans, but it cannot shake your principles. It might take what you thought was secure, but it cannot touch your character unless you allow it. Think about a moment in your life when everything changed. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Maybe a dream collapsed. Maybe the path you were walking suddenly disappeared. At first, the pain felt unbearable, the uncertainty paralyzing. But then, slowly, something inside you awakened, a new strength, a deeper clarity, a fiercer resilience. That is the power of change when embraced. It doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. It uncovers capacities you didn't know you had, depth you never thought you'd explore, courage that was waiting patiently beneath the surface. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The fear of change is often worse than change itself. Anticipation creates anxiety, while presence creates peace. When you step into the moment, when you accept the new landscape life has presented you, you stop drowning in what's been lost and start learning from what's been given. That is the Stoic way, not to shut your eyes to change, but to look it straight in the face and say, "Show me who I can become through this." This mindset doesn't mean you enjoy every twist and turn. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine when it's not. Stoicism is not denial, it's discipline. It's choosing to meet life with open hands, not clenched fists. To say, "I don't know where this leads, but I know who I want to be along the way." That's real strength. That's what builds unshakable inner power. Change also forces you to release attachment. The Stoics often reminded themselves that nothing they had was truly theirs, not their status, not their possessions, not even the people they loved. This wasn't about being cold, it was about being prepared. If you expect permanence in a world defined by impermanence, you will suffer endlessly. But if you recognize that everything is borrowed, everything is temporary, you begin to live with deeper presence and deeper gratitude. You stop taking life for granted. You stop clinging, and you start flowing. In that flow, there is opportunity. Where something ends, something new begins. The loss of a job might open the door to a calling. The end of a relationship might spark a journey of self-discovery. The collapse of an old identity might allow the birth of a truer one. The Stoics saw adversity not as punishment, but as potential. As Epictetus put it, difficulties show men what they are. When everything is comfortable, you don't grow. When the ground shakes, your roots are tested, and if you've planted them in courage and wisdom, you will rise stronger. Let's bring this closer to your daily life. When change knocks, whether big or small, pause. Breathe. Remind yourself. This is part of the process. This is not a detour. This is the path. Then ask, what is this moment asking of me? What virtues can I practice right now? Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's resilience. Maybe it's surrender. Whatever it is, let the change be your teacher. Let it stretch you without breaking you. Let it refine, not define you. There's also something profoundly liberating about accepting that change is constant. It makes your victories more sacred, because you know they're fleeting. It makes your struggles more bearable, because you know they're temporary. It teaches you to hold life gently, not tightly, to enjoy it while it's here, and to release it when it goes. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. It's the strength of someone who has seen the seasons shift and knows that every winter ends. Every storm clears, and every ending hides the seed of a new beginning. Even your goals, your identity, your sense of purpose will evolve. And that's not failure, it's progress. Who you were 5 years ago was not wrong, just incomplete. Who you are becoming isn't perfect, just unfolding. When you embrace change, you give yourself permission to grow, to pivot, to reinvent. You allow yourself to become dynamic instead of rigid. And in that space, you find not only freedom but power. Change also humbles you. It reminds you that you are not the center of the universe. That plans can break, expectations can dissolve, and the only thing guaranteed is the need to adapt. But with humility comes grace. And with grace comes clarity. You stop demanding that life follow your script, and you begin writing new chapters with whatever pen life places in your hand. That's what the Stoics did. That's what you can do. When life shifts, you don't shrink, you expand. When the path ends, you don't freeze, you forge a new one. And when it hurts, you feel it, you learn from it, but you do not let it close your heart. Because the heart that embraces change is the heart that truly lives. Embrace change, not because it's comfortable, but because it's the only thing that stays. Let it mold you, guide you, elevate you. Let it remind you, you were never meant to stay the same. You were meant to evolve. 8. Build inner strength through adversity. Strength is not born in comfort. It is forged in the furnace of hardship. In the quiet moments when you are tested and stretched. When life does not go your way and you have every reason to give up. But choose not to. Inner strength is not given, it is earned. It grows when you face adversity. Not with bitterness, but with bravery. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? You begin to see that challenges are not detours, they are the actual path. The Stoics knew this well. They did not pray for easier lives. They trained for resilience. They welcomed trials, not because they loved suffering, but because they loved the transformation it brings. When you're in the middle of a storm, your instinct may be to escape, to retreat, to wish it away, but Stoicism teaches that adversity is not the enemy. It is the architect of your character. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. These are not just poetic words. They are a roadmap. Whatever is challenging you right now, whether it's a financial setback, emotional pain, betrayal, loss, uncertainty, that is your training ground. That is the place where your strength is being shaped. You don't grow stronger by avoiding discomfort. You grow by meeting it head on and choosing to endure, choosing to rise. Think of every great figure in history. Every leader, philosopher, warrior, or artist who left a mark, they were not shaped by ease. They were shaped by trials. It was in the battle, the rejection, the solitude, the failure, that their resolve was formed. And it will be the same for you. Your adversity is not a punishment. It's a process. It is refining you into someone who can handle more, love deeper, lead better, and live with more clarity. But here's the truth, inner strength doesn't scream. It doesn't announce itself with power moves or loud declarations. It shows up in silence, in the moments when no one is watching, but you still choose to get up, when you feel broken, but still take the next step. When you feel fear, but still act with courage. That's real strength, and you build it not in theory, but in practice, not by talking about resilience, but by living it. There's something beautiful about adversity. It strips away what's fake. It reveals what's real. When everything falls apart, you're left with your core, your beliefs, your discipline, your habits, your mindset. That's why Stoicism doesn't promise an easy life. It offers something better, a resilient life. A life where your peace doesn't depend on the weather outside, but the fortress you've built inside. Epictetus was a slave. His body was broken, but his mind remained free. He taught that no one can harm you unless you allow them to harm your character. That's what you discover in adversity. You cannot control the pain, but you can control what you do with it. You can let it crush you, or you can let it carve you into something stronger, into someone wiser, into a version of yourself that looks back one day and says, "That moment nearly broke me, but I'm grateful for it, because it woke me up." You may think you're not strong enough, that this trial is too much, that you've reached your limit. But here's the thing. You don't find your strength before the storm. You find it inside the storm. It reveals itself when you show up for yourself, when you refuse to quit, when you stop waiting for rescue and start being your own rescue. Every small act of discipline, every time you rise when you don't feel like it, every time you choose grace over anger, clarity over panic, stillness over chaos, you are building unshakable power. Adversity also gives you perspective. What you thought mattered starts to fade. What truly matters starts to emerge. You begin to see that life is not about avoiding pain, but about using pain as a portal, a doorway into deeper meaning, stronger purpose, more profound connection. You stop wasting energy on things that drain you. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing failure. Because once you've walked through fire, you don't fear the heat anymore. You become calm, clear, capable. That's the paradox of hardship. It doesn't destroy you. It removes the parts of you that were never real. The ego, the illusion of control, the attachment to outcomes. In its place, it leaves something sacred, acceptance, clarity, strength. You realize you don't need everything to go right. You just need to stay grounded, to keep walking, to breathe, to trust, to endure. That is the essence of Stoic resilience, not flashy, but faithful, not loud, but lasting. You also begin to develop empathy. When you've suffered, you understand others more. You stop judging people harshly. You start listening better. You become a source of calm in a chaotic world. Your pain becomes a bridge, not a wall. You hold space for others because you know what it feels like to struggle. And that makes you not just stronger, but more human, more whole. Here's what Stoicism wants you to remember. Life will test you. Again and again, not to break you, but to build you, not to punish, but to prepare. If you avoid every hardship, you stay small, but if you lean into the fire, you transform. Don't waste energy asking why it's hard. Ask yourself who you want to become because of it. Let the adversity sculpt you. Let it shape your thoughts, your spirit, your habits. Let it chisel away what's weak and reveal what's unshakable within you. You are not your circumstances. You are how you respond to them. You are not your pain. You are the power that rises in the middle of it. The setbacks, the rejections, the closed doors, they are not signs you're failing. They are signs you're being called to rise. You are being asked to unlock the strength that's already within you. Not someday, not when it gets easier, but right here, right now. Build inner strength through adversity. Not because it's easy, but because you are not here to live a fragile life. You are here to live a courageous one. And that courage is born in the fire you thought would break you, but instead made you whole. 9. Practice gratitude even in difficult times. Gratitude isn't just a reaction to something pleasant, it's a mindset, a discipline, a deep and conscious decision to find light even when surrounded by darkness. Anyone can be thankful when things go their way, when success arrives, when the sun is shining. But the real test, the kind of gratitude that transforms your life, is how you respond when the ground beneath you trembles. When the path forward is unclear, when the storm refuses to pass. That's when gratitude stops being a passive feeling and becomes a powerful act of defiance. A courageous choice to say, even here, I will find something to be thankful for. The Stoics understood this truth centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor burdened by war, plague, and betrayal, wrote daily reflections reminding himself of the gifts hidden even in misfortune. He didn't wait for his life to be perfect to feel grateful. He trained his mind to see beauty in the ordinary, lessons in the painful, and meaning in the chaos. That kind of perception didn't come from a naive heart, it came from a disciplined one. Gratitude was not weakness, it was armor. And here's why it matters. Adversity can harden you or it can humble you. It can make you bitter, or it can make you better. Gratitude is the key that decides which direction you go. It doesn't erase difficulty, but it changes how you carry it. It takes you out of survival mode and places you into presence. It softens the edges of pain and opens your eyes to things you used to overlook, your breath, your body, a friend who stayed, a sunrise that showed up even when nothing else did. There's power in pausing to appreciate what remains when everything else is uncertain. Because when you practice gratitude in hard times, you reclaim agency. You remind yourself that not everything is lost, that there's still something within you that cannot be taken, your ability to see clearly, to love deeply, to endure gracefully, and in that recognition, Suffering loses its grip. You start to feel less like a victim of life and more like an active participant in your own evolution. Gratitude also grounds you. It pulls you out of anxiety about the future and regret about the past. It anchors you in the present moment, where real life is happening, even if it's messy, even if it hurts, because somewhere in that mess, there's still warmth in your coffee, still kindness in a stranger's smile, still wisdom in the silence. And the more you pay attention to these small blessings, the stronger you become, not because life gets easier, but because your perspective grows deeper. Imagine waking up in the middle of a tough chapter of your life. You feel tired, nothing seems certain, but instead of spiraling into despair, you take a moment, you breathe, you look around. Maybe your body is sore, but it still moves. Maybe your mind is weary, but it's still learning. Maybe your heart is bruised, but it's still open. In that moment, you realize you are still here, and that is something to be grateful for. The habit of gratitude is not about denying pain. It's about expanding your vision. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to let what's wrong blind you to what's right. Stoicism teaches that we cannot always change our circumstances, but we can always shift our perception, and in that shift lies our greatest power. There is always something to appreciate. Even in loss, you can be grateful for what once was. Even in failure, you can be thankful for the lessons gained. Even in solitude, you can feel awe for the silence that reveals your inner truth. Gratitude transforms suffering into wisdom, disappointment into direction, and the ordinary into the sacred. And when you live from that place, you become a force of resilience. People feel it in your presence. You're not shaken by every setback, not destroyed by every rejection, because your sense of fulfillment is no longer attached to external wins. It's rooted in something far deeper, a heart that sees blessings where others see burdens, a soul that whispers, "Thank you," even in the rain. That kind of gratitude cannot be faked. It comes from experience, from walking through the fire and emerging with open hands instead of clenched fists. From losing things you thought you needed, only to discover the wealth you already had within. From seeing clearly that joy isn't found in perfect conditions, it's found in your ability to cherish imperfect moments. This doesn't mean you have to smile through your suffering. It means you acknowledge the pain but choose not to let it consume you. It means you look for beauty not as an escape, but as a form of survival, a way to stay human in a world that often forgets what truly matters. Gratitude is also contagious. When you practice it, you inspire others. You become a mirror that reflects hope. Even in dark places, your presence reminds people that strength isn't just in endurance, it's in appreciation. In the ability to feel joy not because everything is good, but because you choose to see the good in everything. Start small, one thing, each day, a moment of calm, a laugh with a friend, a lesson learned the hard way, the taste of your favorite food, the silence between thoughts. Write it down, speak it out loud, let it root itself in your awareness. Because over time, those small acts of noticing become a powerful foundation. A life that is not only successful on the outside, but rich on the inside. You will face storms. You will walk through grief, through change, through uncertainty. But if you carry gratitude with you, you will not walk alone. It will remind you, again and again, That even in the darkest chapters, the light is not gone. It may be small, it may flicker, but it is there, waiting for your attention, ready to grow. Practice gratitude, even in difficult times, not because life is always beautiful, but because your ability to see beauty is what makes life worth living. Let that perspective be your strength, your anchor, your secret source of unshakable peace. 10. Control your reactions, not the events. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control traffic, the words someone else speaks, or the unexpected losses life throws your way. Events unfold as they will, often without warning, often without mercy. Life does not ask for your permission before it changes course. But Stoicism teaches something both sobering and empowering. While you cannot control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond. And in that response lies your power. That response is your freedom. It's not the chaos outside that defines you, it's the clarity within. Think about this for a moment. Every single situation you face offers you a gap, an invisible pause, between the trigger and your reaction. That pause is sacred. That pause is your moment of choice. Will you react with impulse, emotion, and ego, or will you respond with reason, patience, and perspective? Most people rush past the pause. They explode in anger, drown in anxiety, lash out, give up, break down. But those who master their reactions, those who choose to respond, not react, become unshakable. Not because their lives are easy, but because their minds are trained. Imagine this. Someone insults you. Your first instinct may be to fire back, to defend yourself, to protect your pride. But what if you chose stillness instead? What if you remembered that their words are theirs, not yours? What if you chose not to internalize someone else's pain, not to let their chaos become your own? That is power. That is mastery. That is the core of Stoicism, not suppressing emotions, but transcending them through awareness and choice. Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Those are not just poetic words, they are a guide to inner peace. Because once you understand that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, that not every disruption deserves your energy, you begin to reclaim your life from the tyranny of the external. You stop being a puppet pulled by strings of circumstance and start becoming the author of your responses. Controlling your reaction doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean tolerating injustice or pretending pain doesn't exist. It means being strategic. It means choosing your response with wisdom instead of impulse. It means pausing long enough to ask, what is the most constructive way I can meet this moment? What would my highest self do here? That's not weakness. That's the deepest form of strength. Now consider this. When you react without control, you surrender your peace. You give it away to a traffic jam, a rude stranger, a disappointing outcome. You become a slave to the ever-changing world. But when you take a breath, observe your emotion, and choose a response that aligns with your values, you become free. Free to act instead of being acted upon. Free to create calm in the middle of chaos. Free to lead yourself, rather than being led by mood, fear, or frustration. We've all faced those days when everything seems to go wrong. The plans fail, the people disappoint, the pressure rises. And yet, in those exact moments, You can practice the art of composure. You can look at the mess and decide not to mirror it. You can remind yourself that your peace is not at the mercy of noise around you. It lives in your ability to pause, reflect, and choose wisely. That is the Stoic advantage. That is what makes you different. Imagine a life where you're not constantly at the mercy of external chaos. A life where your buttons aren't so easily pushed. A life where people wonder how you stay so calm, so grounded, so clear, especially when things go wrong. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens through practice, through discipline, through training the mind to respond rather than react, through building the habit of reflection before retaliation, of pause before panic, of stillness before speaking. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. You will lose your temper sometimes. You will overreact. You will say things you wish you could take back. That's part of being human. But each time you catch yourself, each time you pause and choose differently, you strengthen the muscle of emotional sovereignty. You become less reactive, more responsive, less rattled, more resilient. You become someone who leads with presence, not impulse. And there's another truth worth holding close. Your reaction sets the tone for your entire life. It shapes your relationships. It influences your mental health. It defines your reputation. It's not the external storm, but your internal climate that determines whether you feel grounded or scattered. When you master your reactions, you master your energy. And when you master your energy, you master your life. You start seeing obstacles not as threats, but as invitations to grow. You begin treating difficult people not as enemies, but as teachers. You learn that the world will always test your patience, your character, your resolve, but it can never take away your power to respond with clarity, kindness, and strength. That's what Stoic self-mastery looks like. That's how you walk through life with dignity, even when dignity seems impossible. Every situation is a test, not of what's happening outside you, but of what's happening inside. Will you react emotionally, or will you respond intentionally? Will you let the moment consume you, or will you rise above it? The choice is always yours. And the more often you choose awareness over autopilot, the more you shift from a life of reactivity to a life of purpose, of peace, of quiet power. Control your reactions, not the events. That is the true Stoic path. Because when you own your reaction, you own your life, not the noise, not the storms, not the people who try to pull you down. Just you, fully awake, fully present, and fully in charge of the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, yourself. 11. Stay humble and avoid ego traps. Ego is the most seductive liar you'll ever meet. It whispers in your ear, telling you you're smarter, stronger, more important than others. It tempts you to compare, to seek validation, to measure your worth by applause. And once it gets a grip on your heart, it blinds you to your own blind spots. That's the danger, because ego doesn't just inflate, it isolates. It builds a fragile castle that crumbles the moment you're challenged. That's why the Stoics warned us. Pride is not power, it's a trap. True strength begins with humility. Not the kind of false modesty that says, I'm nothing, but the quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. Humility is the ability to learn without feeling small, to win without boasting, to lose without blaming. It's the mindset of someone who knows there's always more to understand. more to grow, more to refine. A humble person doesn't pretend to know everything, they ask better questions. They don't seek to dominate, they seek to elevate. And in doing so, they rise beyond the ego's reach. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, carried this awareness in every journal entry. He ruled an empire, yet wrote daily reminders to stay grounded, to resist the temptation of vanity. He didn't let status cloud his self-perception. He didn't confuse praise for truth, because he understood. Ego is the enemy of wisdom, and wisdom is what allows us to evolve. When ego takes over, growth stops. Why? Because ego says, I already know. It refuses feedback. It deflects responsibility. It gets defensive instead of curious. And over time, it becomes a barrier between you and your better self. You stop improving not because you lack potential, but because you think you've arrived. That illusion is dangerous. Progress requires openness, and openness demands humility. Humility invites learning. It lets you sit at the feet of mentors, admit mistakes without shame, and change your mind when new truth emerges. Humility turns conflict into understanding, turns criticism into fuel. It keeps your heart soft in a world that tries to harden you. It makes you a better leader, a better friend, a better human, because you're no longer focused on being right, but on getting it right. In contrast, ego thrives on being seen. It constantly asks, how do I look? Rather than, who am I becoming? It's addicted to comparison, to winning, to approval, but that chase never ends. Because ego feeds on emptiness. The more you give it, the more it demands. And when your worth is tied to image, you become fragile. One failure can shatter you. One rejection can derail your confidence. Because deep down, you weren't building a self, you were building a mask. But humility is unshakable. Because it isn't built on ego, it's built on truth. It knows success is temporary. Failure is feedback, and life is too complex to ever feel superior. It knows everyone has something to teach you, even those you disagree with. It embraces the beginner's mindset, the idea that no matter how far you've come, you're always at the beginning of something new. In a world obsessed with self-promotion, humility is a rebellion. It's choosing to be real over being right. It's listening more than you speak. It's doing the work even when no one's watching. It's saying, I don't know yet, but I'm willing to learn. That's not weakness, that's leadership. That's maturity. That's character. And the world doesn't need more arrogant voices. It needs more grounded ones. Avoid the ego traps, the need to be praised, the urge to prove, the fear of being wrong. These are illusions that distract you from your purpose. You are not your title, your achievements, or your followers. You are your values, your growth, your contribution. And the deeper you anchor into that truth, the less you need approval to feel whole. Be confident but humble. Be bold but teachable. Be proud of how far you've come, but never too proud to keep growing. That's the balance. That's the Stoic way. And when you embody it, you walk through life with quiet strength. You become the kind of person who inspires, not because you demand respect, but because you carry yourself with dignity. Let others chase the spotlight. You build your light from within. Let others boast about what they've done. You focus on what you're becoming. Because real power isn't loud, it's disciplined. It doesn't crave attention, it radiates authenticity. And when you stay humble, you stay ready, ready to adapt, to improve, to evolve. That's the kind of person who endures. That's the kind of legacy that lasts. Stay humble and avoid ego traps, not to please others, but to remain in control of your path. Ego is easy. Humility is earned. And those who choose it daily discover a rare freedom, the freedom to grow without limits, to fail without shame, and to live without pretending. That's the kind of freedom worth fighting for. That's the kind of life worth living. 12. Practice patience. Good things take time. In a world addicted to instant gratification, patience has become a rare virtue, often mistaken for passivity or weakness. But make no mistake, patience is not the absence of action. It is the quiet power behind consistent effort. It's the discipline to keep showing up, even when progress is invisible. It's the strength to keep planting seeds, knowing they won't bloom overnight. Stoicism reminds us that the most meaningful transformations in life take time, sometimes a lot of it, and that rushing the process can sabotage the outcome. You don't build a strong mind in a week, or a powerful character in a weekend. You don't create meaningful relationships, master a craft, or rise through difficulty by sprinting. Growth is slow, and that's okay. In fact, that's essential, because everything that lasts, everything that truly matters, requires time to mature. A tree doesn't rush to reach the sky. It grows slowly, quietly, anchored deep before it rises tall. So must you. Patience is what helps you endure the silence between action and result. It's what gives you the grace to hold on through discomfort, to trust that your efforts are not wasted even when no one sees them. Impatience screams for proof, right now. Patience whispers, keep going. It's not that patience makes life easier. It's that it makes you tougher. It makes you wiser. It helps you fall in love with the process, not just the prize. When you practice patience, you're not ignoring results. You're choosing to focus on consistency instead. You're choosing to measure your life not by speed, but by alignment. Are you showing up with integrity? Are you committed to doing the work even when motivation fades? That's where real transformation happens, not in sudden leaps, but in the small, invisible moments that stack over time. Success is not a moment, it's a pattern. And patience is what sustains the pattern. It keeps you grounded when others burn out. It helps you pace yourself when your mind wants to rush. It reminds you that mastery isn't about intensity, it's about longevity. Anyone can work hard for a day. Few can show up every day. That's why patient people often win, not because they move faster, but because they never quit. Patience also protects you from emotional volatility. It teaches you to step back when things don't go your way, to breathe when you feel the urge to panic, to hold faith in the face of uncertainty. It teaches you that life is seasonal. There are times for planting, times for growing, times for harvesting. If you try to harvest too soon, you get nothing. If you abandon the field too early, you miss the miracle. The Stoics understood this deeply. They practiced the art of steady progress, day by day, regardless of applause or setbacks. They weren't interested in shortcuts, because shortcuts often rob you of the very strength you're trying to build. Patience, in their eyes, was not waiting idly, it was waiting purposefully. It was enduring the necessary trials, with trust and persistence, knowing that every step mattered, even the slow ones. When you feel stuck, remember, you might not be stuck. You might just be growing in a way you can't see yet. Roots grow underground before the tree appears. Muscles build in silence before strength shows. Sometimes progress is invisible because it's happening within you. Your character is being shaped. Your resilience is being carved. Your spirit is being tempered. And all of that takes time. Patience is also an act of self-respect. It's the recognition that your journey doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It's the courage to trust your own pace, to stop comparing, to stop rushing to catch up. Because real confidence is quiet. It knows that what's meant for you cannot be forced. And what's forced is rarely meant to last. When you practice patience, you detach from the noise. You return to your center. You realize that your timing is sacred, and your timeline is your own. Greatness isn't born in urgency, it's forged in devotion. The artist who paints for decades before being recognized. The athlete who trains in silence for years before stepping into the spotlight. The philosopher who spends a lifetime seeking wisdom, knowing it cannot be rushed. These are not stories of overnight success. These are stories of patient persistence, of quietly doing the work. Day after day, whether the world notices or not. Practicing patience also deepens your joy. It helps you appreciate the little wins, the slow progress, the moments in between milestones. It helps you fall in love with the journey, not just the destination. And that's where life truly happens, in the journey. In the daily efforts, the silent victories, the faithful steps no one claps for. Patience transforms those moments from burdens into blessings. In relationships, patience helps you understand rather than assume. It teaches you to listen fully, to give people the space to grow, to forgive without rushing healing. It creates room for deeper connection. Because you stop demanding perfection and start appreciating progress. You become less reactive, more compassionate, and that changes everything. In your career, patience keeps you focused on craft over clout. It helps you resist the temptation to chase trends, and instead build something meaningful. It reminds you that legacy isn't built in days, it's built in decades. That the work you do today, even if unnoticed, is laying bricks for something greater. Every page you write, every representative you train, every lesson you study, it's all part of a structure you're building. Brick by brick, breath by breath. In your own mind, patience brings peace. It silences the inner critic that says, "You should be further by now." It replaces that pressure with presence, with purpose, with the quiet truth that you are not late. You are right on time for your own story. And that story is still unfolding. So when things take longer than expected, breathe. When results delay, trust. When progress feels slow, persist. Remind yourself that patience isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the Stoic armor that shields you from despair and doubt. It's the mindset that says, "I am in this for the long game. I will not rush what requires roots." Practice patience, not just because good things take time, but because you take time, and you are worth the wait. 13. Live by your principles, not by emotions. If your emotions are in the driver's seat, they will take you down winding roads of regret, distraction, and inconsistency. But when your principles take the wheel and emotions ride in the passenger seat, something powerful happens. You gain clarity, strength, and direction. Stoicism doesn't preach emotionlessness, it teaches emotional placement. Your emotions are allowed in the room, but they don't get to lead the conversation. They're your messengers, not your masters. And if you forget that, you become a slave to their impulses. Every day, you are given countless opportunities to choose between impulse and intention. You receive criticism. Do you explode or reflect? Someone betrays your trust. Do you seek revenge or stay grounded in dignity? You're under pressure. Do you panic or return to your values? These are not small decisions. These are the defining moments that shape who you become. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That quote alone could change the course of your life, because it urges you to pause, evaluate, and act with integrity instead of impulse. When you live by your principles, your internal compass becomes stronger than external noise. You no longer chase the fleeting validation of others, or spiral with every emotional wave that hits. You become anchored, and from that anchor, you gain an extraordinary power, consistency. The kind of consistency that breeds trust, self-respect, and peace. Emotions fluctuate like the weather. One moment you're motivated, the next you're not. One day you feel confident, the next you question everything. But principles, they don't waver. They don't care about your mood. They ask for your loyalty in storms and in sunshine. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Not every emotion deserves a reaction. Not every feeling deserves to become a story you live by. Anger is not a license to hurt. Fear is not a reason to run. Excitement is not proof of alignment. Feelings are real, but they're not always right. That's why your job isn't to suppress them. It's to examine them, to ask, does this serve the person I'm trying to become? When you're in the heat of a moment, your mind might scream, say something, but wisdom whispers, say only what is true and necessary. Your body might tense with adrenaline, urging you to act, but your principles invite you to pause, to breathe, to remember who you are, and what you stand for. And when you do, your life begins to reflect not just how you feel, but who you choose to be. People admire strength, but not the loud, reactive kind. They admire the quiet strength of someone who remains composed while others lose control. Someone who doesn't allow chaos to dictate their character. Someone who has the courage to act with grace when it's easier to lash out. That strength is not born from emotion, it's born from principle. Living by your principles also rewires how you see the world. You stop seeing challenges as insults and start seeing them as tests of character. You stop blaming others for your reactions and take ownership. You no longer ask, why did they treat me that way? You ask, did I act in a way that honors my values? This shift moves you from victimhood to mastery, from reaction to responsibility. In relationships, it means loving with clarity, not attachment. It means setting boundaries not out of fear, but out of respect for yourself and for others. It means being honest even when it's uncomfortable, because truth is a value you refuse to compromise. It means listening fully instead of responding defensively, because understanding is more important than being right. In your work, it means showing up with discipline instead of waiting for inspiration. It means doing the right thing even when no one's watching. It means standing firm when others bend to pressure. Because you know your integrity is more valuable than any short-term gain. It means you stop comparing your pace to others and start measuring success by your alignment with your core beliefs. The reward for living this way isn't applause. It's self-respect. It's the quiet pride that comes from knowing you didn't sell out your soul to satisfy a moment. And over time, this earns you something even more powerful than recognition. It earns you trust. From others, from yourself, from the life you're building. But how do you actually do this? How do you train yourself to live by principles and not by passing emotion? You begin by creating space. Between trigger and response, there is a gap. That's your power. When you feel the rush of anger or fear or frustration, pause. Ask yourself, is this action aligned with my values? That one question can save you from 1,000 regrets. You also need clarity. What are your principles? What do you stand for? If you don't define them, your emotions will define your decisions for you. So write them down, speak them aloud, revisit them often, build them into your daily rituals. Remind yourself, I will speak truth. I will act with kindness. I will move with courage. I will stand in integrity. And when emotions rise like waves, these principles will keep you steady. Even when you're hurt, even when you're tested, even when everything in you wants to scream or retreat or react. That's when your principles matter most. That's when they become your shield, your compass, your identity. Living this way doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. It doesn't make you distant, it makes you grounded. It allows you to feel deeply, but act wisely. And in a world ruled by outrage and impulse, that clarity is a rare and powerful gift. So let the world swirl in chaos. Let emotions come and go like the wind. But you, stand firm. Stay true. Live by your principles. Because while emotions may color the moment, principles define the legacy. If you've made it this far, then something inside you is shifting. You're no longer just consuming ideas, you're seeking transformation. You're not here for motivation that fades in an hour. You're here to build a life that's unshakable. What you've just explored isn't a list of nice-sounding concepts. These 13 Stoic principles are tools, sharp, timeless, and forged in the fires of real human struggle. They were not created in ivory towers. They were lived by emperors facing betrayal, soldiers on the edge of death, and thinkers confronting the chaos of the world. And now, they're passed to you, not to admire, but to apply. Imagine waking up each day, no longer chasing approval, no longer fearing the unknown. Imagine acting with intention, no matter how you feel. Imagine being the calm in the storm, the one who holds steady when others lose their way. That's what these principles give you. Not control over the world, but command over yourself. Yes, the world will still test you. People will still disappoint. Failure will knock on your door. But you will respond differently. You will walk with clarity. You will speak with purpose. You will stand on something unshakable, your own values. The truth is, most people drift. They react. They live at the mercy of moods, markets, and the opinions of strangers. But you have a choice. You can build your life on principles that don't crumble. You can rise above noise and choose depth, above fear and choose courage, above impulse and choose wisdom. This is not the end. It's your beginning. And if this message speaks to something inside you, don't let it stay silent. Share this video with someone who needs it. Someone who's lost in chaos. Someone who's doubting themselves. Someone who's ready to grow. Right finger hit the like button to support this journey of inner mastery. Right finger subscribe to the channel so you never miss another moment of clarity, strength, and Stoic wisdom. Right finger and drop a comment below. Which principle spoke to your soul the most? Because this isn't just content. This is a community, a place where thinkers, seekers, and warriors gather, not to escape life, but to master it. Your journey continues now. Stay grounded, stay powerful, and above all, live by the code you believe in.